Right, excellent. Thank you very much for joining. And if you have expected a presentation how Erlang works, then you are in the wrong room. That's not me. It's basically when Gary said to me, well, you need to talk about workforce management, and can you share with us how you see this happening and how operational delivery is done? I thought, well, I would really like to have a discussion around what we recently saw coming up in the press, where we are hearing and seeing notes and comments around, well, the contact center industry is now actually controlling what their people do when they work from home. They are spying on people, and the actual productivity is nowhere near what it was supposed to be. And you know, scheduled attendance, everybody can switch the PC on and pretend they are there. Now, as a contact center enthusiast, and I love operations, I thought, how dare you? I trust my people. And then I shifted to, actually, when we are in center, we, quite frankly, we walk the call floor, we watch what people do, we implement the clean desk policy. So therefore, we probably would not allow a cup of tea with no lid on, and probably no paper, especially if we work in a regulated environment. So how do we bring these two together? And then something else came to the forefront, where I was thinking, hang on a second. We have up to a year ago, we had a professional business life and we had a personal home life. And we walked from one to the other, and we kind of managed, to an extent, to leave our relative other part of the life where it belonged to, business and professional, into the workplace, and private at home. And I remember more than one conversation where I would have brought somebody in, maybe a team leader or an agent, and he would have said, oh, I have a really tough time at home. And yes, absolutely, I went out of my way to help them, support them. But in the back of my head, I expected, hang on a second, leave your personal problems at home. You're here at work and you work. Now, the pandemic has changed that dynamic. If you work at home, you have no choice than also being interlinked with your personal private life. And not everybody has an office where they can just do things from home. So I would like to put two statements into the room and hear what you feel and what you think about that. The first one is, operational delivery is not just about being motivated and helping people to do their best. It's just as much about diligence and discipline, versus, or equals, also, we must start to bring the professional and the personal lives together. We cannot treat them in silos anymore, because that's what we have seen for the last, let's say, 14 months. And I'm wondering how you see this. I've recently just done some work in a Romanian contact center where they handled the pandemic slightly differently to us, but their view very much was, well, it doesn't make much of a difference. I can put my professional hat on and there is no challenge. On the flip side, also recently in a German contact center in Berlin, where people told me, well, how do you expect me to work? I live in a 2-bedroom flat. I share it with my partner, and you expect me to provide a service. So how do we marry these two going forward? Because the working from home model clearly is here to stay. Does anyone have any views, or what's your experience on that one?
I've really enjoyed talking to people when I've run customer service, talking to people who've got a dog barking in the background, or they'll have a child wander up. Yeah. And everybody's talking about making businesses more human. I talk about it a lot. And I think just adding those extra little noises in the background, then it just gives you the human element. And I think it's really great for engagement between the customer service agent and the customer. I think it's a really good thing, but I know that there's a line to be drawn with that last example you gave, the 2-bedroom flat. I just really don't know how some people could overcome that.
Do you believe it must be overcome, or do you think it's going to be accepted in the longer term?
I think it has to be accepted by the organisation, but whether or not it's accepted by the partner is another matter. And I think that's where the issue lies, is when it messes the home life up. So you can't make a single sound because I'm on a 4-hour shift right now. So you've got to be really quiet or go to the bedroom all day. You know, that's the bit I think it's quite challenging.
So do others believe that the organisation will simply accept the fact that a dog barks or that the noise is out there, people get distracted, even, you know, being at home and walking away anytime I kind of like?
I think we're all on a bit of a journey here, Marianne. I think some organisations seem to want to go back to the way it was and insist that everybody goes back to the office 5 days a week, which is entirely their right. But actually, I think, you know, the genie's out of the bottle for a lot of people.
Yeah,
they're more productive. I mean, I know the amount of time I have now compared to, you know, getting up at 6, leaving the house at 6:30 to get through the traffic, working at home. The lifestyle is just incredible. So I suspect we've not got to the end of that development yet. It feels like there'll be a hybrid model, because without a hybrid model, you don't really ever get. It's much harder to drive the right culture if you onboard everyone remotely and they never meet physically with any of their colleagues. But I think there has to be a level of choice involved. So some people would probably want to work from home most of the time, and if they have the ability to do that, then I don't see an issue with that. Other people may want to work in the office most of the time because they simply don't have the space or the Wi-Fi or the technical ability to do it. Where that develops, though, over time, in that people might start to think about, actually, the nature of the work I'm in a contact centre means the vast majority of jobs now allow me to work at home. Therefore, I need to start to rethink my setup at home in terms of, you know, even things like, I'm sat in a dining chair at the moment, so it's not the most comfy thing to sit on. My wife, who works at home, she's got her office chair, she's got a proper ergonomic chair. So, you know, I think we're in the middle of a journey. I don't know where it ends, but it absolutely doesn't end with everybody going back into the office 5 days a week.
No, and I think we can probably all agree. Jo, did you just have a thought on that one?
Yeah, it was just to suggest another side of it that, you know, I agree with Tracy and Anthony about there's a personal element to this, definitely. That one size doesn't fit all, and therefore it's about understanding what does the business need, what does the individual need, and then trying to work out that compromise. But I think there is an element of businesses also need to make some firm decisions about how do they achieve consistency? How do they match their brand ideals, their customer service standards? And to some extent, how they protect that while still accommodating the needs of individuals. Again, is going to take some effort to try to strike that balance, I would say.
And I think that ties into that second statement, or actually I used it as the first one. To deliver an excellent service, you still need to have a high level of diligence how you do things, not just what you do, how you do them, and you have to apply the discipline. And what I'm seeing with the discipline in particular, let's say your morning huddles that are now happening online, they cannot be replaced. And we still schedule for these huddles to make sure that we have got this accountability, because one thing that I see is much more difficult to measure, and because we don't see it physically all the time, is this piece of accountability. What am I doing? Who am I doing it for? And why am I doing it? And who do I report to? Because we can't just, you know, pulling a report in the morning and looking at it is one thing. Holding people accountable in a respectful way of what they did so that the numbers came out is something else. And there is a small path that we need to walk before we step into somebody's home life, because the service has still been delivered from home. And I'm learning that questions need to be asked much more carefully, because I do not want to offend anyone. On the flip side, I really absolutely still want to know why, for example, you had 7 small breaks, comfort breaks throughout the day. In the contact center, if it was physical sitting there, you would have come and told me, And you would have said, I have X, Y, and Z today, so therefore I need more breaks. Now you might not. And I am challenged to ask the question in a loving and supporting way, yet I still do need to know. So I think we have quite a lot to do here by way of how do we use the technology and our language, how we speak about what's happening, or how we speak about scheduling, being on time, adherence to schedule, etc., with still putting that discipline there and the rigor, because that's what made the centers initially successful, that there was a certain government, this is how we do business. And we cannot just go and say, well, we don't care about that governance anymore. We just hope for the best, and people will do. They will want to do, no doubt about that. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying they are not willing. I think the honor is on us as contact center leaders to make sure that we strike that balance. Does that resonate with you? I see some nodding and some people thinking.
Yes, it does actually, and I think that when everybody was first thrust into the situation of people working from home, all of a sudden, you kind of have to, I guess, give it a period of time before everything settles. We go, okay, what's the thing with breaks? How are people doing this? People maybe, hopefully, aren't late anymore. There are many bonuses to people working from home, and if the conversation's going, so there's also, did they just take a lot of breaks today? Or do they take a lot of breaks quite often? Is there a pattern to it? And then having the right conversation, that's when team leader, the person that's closest to them, could go in to say, let's just have a chat. You know, what is it that challenges you every day and how can we get around that? And then using workarounds, depending on the customer demand, using workarounds to say, okay, if you take up that time, then maybe you could work another half an hour extra and that kind of thing. But a little bit of, I should imagine there's more give and take is required for most areas to really open that dialogue. And that's where the communication and engagement skills of the team leader really come into play. And I'm hearing that that's much more important these days, is that they can't just put their head down and do stats all day. They have to be connecting with people all the time. And I think that skill in a team leader has had to rise a lot during this period.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 30 seconds left. Anthony, you seem to have been thinking.
Yeah, 30 seconds. I can talk for England. Two quick things. For me, whether people are working at home or working in the office, I think we speak to them in a respectful way. So I wouldn't be oversensitive to the fact they were working from home. But the key for me, and it's a wider contact centre piece, is I think people working at home means we're having to treat them as adults now. Whereas when they're in the centre, often they get treated as...
And we're all back in. I have so much more I could have said.
I was